Yo, what is up guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we got a movie review. It's been a long time since I've done a movie review. And that's kind of because like the last few months have sucked for movies. There's really been nothing out. But as we're hitting spring, a lot of movies are coming out, so I figured I'd get back to the reviews. Today we're going to be reviewing Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire. Ooh. And just a heads up before, this will be a spoiler review. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, here's your warning now. So overall, quick little recap. I actually really liked the movie. It was pretty solid. I kind of like the whole Godzilla franchise. So far we have in this current Godzilla universe, there's the first one that came out in 2014, Godzilla. That one was like pretty serious, pretty scary, very tense. And then Skull Island, I think, came out a little bit after that. And then you had Godzilla King of the Monsters. And then Godzilla vs. Kong. And then now we have Godzilla x Kong. So it is interesting how this franchise, this version of the Godzilla story started out really serious, like I said. And it had a very serious tone up till like Godzilla vs. Kong. And then it started getting a little campy, I'd say, which is totally fine, because if you've ever seen the old Godzilla Japanese movies, like it's an absolute like it's kind of like a comedy movie, and seeing the way they like fight is really funny, which I liked seeing in this movie. It was basically like a WWE match with big giant monsters like wrestling each other. I don't actually mind how the tone kind of shifted from the start of this Godzilla universe. I think it's called like the Legendary Godzilla universe. Because that's like the brand that produces these movies. But I do kind of like how they shifted into like a little more silly, lighthearted tone. But what I don't like is kind of like the, like, I don't even know, like the mysticism or like sci-fi aspect they brought into it. Like, I know it's a bunch of like mythical monsters, but the whole scene where they're in the Hollow Earth and like opening portals and stuff, that part of it kind of got a little weird and kind of out of hand and kind of annoying, but I'll get into that later. But overall, like the tone of these movies, I think it fits, and it was a pretty fun, lighthearted action flick. I'm not going to give like a full plot synopsis because it's just monsters fighting each other, and I'm not even really like sure I remember exactly everything that happened in this movie, because no one really like pays attention to the story. They just want to see monsters fight. But basically, Godzilla teams up with Kong after an initial little skirmish. They team up to fight the Scar King, who's like an evil version of Kong, in the Hollow Earth, which like the Hollow Earth is like some Earth inside the Earth, which is just weird. Like they go inside the core of the Earth. I don't know what's going on with that whole thing. But it was an interesting like way to set up the fight. And then you have Shimo, who's like an older like version of Godzilla, except she has ice powers and she walks on all fours, so she's more like a lizard. Yeah, I don't know. It was a cool fight, cool way they set it all up. Not very complicated plot. I mean, it's Godzilla and Kong fighting. Big monkey, big lizard. So let me get into some quick negatives about this movie, and this is kind of like my problem with the whole like franchise is they spend so much time on the people, the human characters, which like I don't give a crap about. They're so boring, so uninteresting. I do like how they have this kind of like spy, like thriller mystery to this Godzilla universe, where like you get the secret files of like the monsters and the government covering up stuff, but they didn't really delve into that in this movie. I know there is the Monarch TV show on Apple Plus. I haven't watched that yet, but that to me just kind of seems like even more human stuff, which like the thriller side of it, mystery side might be interesting, but once again, I don't really care about the humans in this franchise. Like, I'm just going to watch big monsters fight each other. I don't care about the little humans that are useless and powerless. And speaking of the annoying humans, the main actress, like the lead, really annoying. I just don't like that actress. She actually was in Iron Man 3, and I just found her annoying. Her character was just kind of boring. The little girl that they focus on, she's alright. I mean, I think it's cool that she speaks to Kong with her sign language. That's pretty cool. They got a little story going on there. I mean, I've seen all of the Godzilla movies in this franchise, but I really don't remember like anything about each character because no one cares, and like I don't remember what happened really in the last movie. Like it's just they're just big monsters fighting once again. Another thing I didn't like about this movie is the weird music, just an odd soundtrack that they put together. Didn't really have like anything memorable, and it was just kind of like it was just a weird mix and match of music. Nothing super iconic. And then, like I said, the whole scene in the Hollow Earth with the ancient people, the ancient tribe, and the pyramids and the weird portals, that I could have gone without that. And then, like, yeah, I don't get how they're there. Like, how are they living in the Hollow Earth? Like, did they just dig into the earth thousands of years ago? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, so I didn't understand how they got to Hollow Earth, and I really didn't care. Like, I just didn't find that an interesting plot point to the movie. Like, just get back to Godzilla and Kong. Every time it would cut back to the humans, I'd just be waiting for them to go back to the monsters. Now, on the other hand, a thing I did like was two characters actually stood out and they were pretty decent, even though I still don't care that much about them. The conspiracy theorist guy that they brought onto the team, he's pretty funny actor. He was in Bullet Train. He was one of the characters that starred in that movie. He's a cool actor. I thought he was pretty funny, and like his character is just kind of goofy. He's like a Discord conspiracy theorist. And then the vet that changes Kong's tooth, he's like a dentist for kaiju, big monsters. I thought he was a pretty interesting character. He was like Australian, so he kind of had a little bit of a funny personality. But besides that, all the human characters really boring. And then another thing that I really liked was like the WWE moves where they're just fighting and Godzilla's like mounting up on a big hill and he does like a dive. So it was like a wrestler jumping off the ring jumping off the ropes into the ring to fight Godzilla. And I thought that was funny. So fights were really good. I really enjoyed how they had a bunch of kaiju show up. Like you kind of got a look at more monsters in the universe, and obviously that hints towards there being even more, and that's something I find interesting, like seeing new monsters introduced. I know there was a lot in King of the Monsters where Godzilla kind of beats them all, but it's cool to just see him go on a rampage and basically have no problem with those monsters, which showed how strong Godzilla was. And then I think Kong like really stood out in this movie, and I saw some people like debating, like they were kind of mad that Godzilla didn't have as many scenes, but to be fair, like he's had like 3 of his own movies. He had Godzilla, and then King of the Monsters, and then Godzilla versus Kong. And Godzilla kind of like destroyed Kong in that movie. So they kind of focused more on Kong in this one. I know he had Kong Skull Island, but I like to see them focus on him a little more. Yeah, I think it was funny how they kind of had Kong's like personality shine through. Like at the beginning of the movie, he's just lonely, like he's just bored and by himself. So he gets bored. That was funny to see him kind of like pouting around looking for his family, and then the whole scene with him getting his tooth removed was pretty funny. It's weird that they like give a big gorilla a personality, but it really like was done well. And then there were like 2 really funny scenes with him when they're down in the Hollow Earth, like trying to free the gorillas that are basically being enslaved, which that whole scene was crazy. But the big gorilla goes up to Kong and trying to intimidate him, and then Kong just like punches him. That was really comical. It reminded me of like some like 1940s, 1950s cartoon. And then the stupid little monkey, the tiny kid Kong that like kept following him around. When they first fought, Kong just like picked up the monkey by his leg and started using it to hit the other gorillas, which I thought was funny. I think like, yeah, the fighting was like really interesting, fun to watch, and it was well executed and had good humor in it. The one thing I didn't like about the fighting was the final fight scene, which like usually sucks in like all movies. Honestly, like that's becoming a trend. Like the Marvel movies, the 3rd act with the big fight sucks, and it's hard to nail for a lot of movies. And they decided to make them all fight with anti-gravity in the Hollow Earth. So they were all just like floating around, which was so weird. And then finally they got sucked through a portal back onto Earth, which was good because I feel like you kind of lose like the sense of how big, like the scaling is just weird when they're in the Hollow Earth because they don't seem as big. But then when they finally went back to Earth, seeing them all fight on the planet with humans for scale, like kind of brought back how massive and how big of monsters they are. So you have that final fight scene where they're fighting through the city, and I just think it's funny how like there was no regard for the buildings being destroyed and like people dying, obviously, which I think is kind of funny in this universe. Like they literally do nothing, like Godzilla and Kong do nothing to prevent like hurting other people in the crossfire. So like it's kind of just the funny implications that like anytime Godzilla or Kong move, they're just destroying cities and killing tons of people, even though they're protecting the Earth. I think it is just a funny side effect that doesn't really ever get addressed in these movies. But overall, I thought Godzilla X Kong was pretty decent. Just a fun movie. Nothing, I mean, you're not going in expecting an absolute masterpiece. You're just there to watch the big gorilla and lizard fight another big gorilla and lizard. And it definitely delivered on that front. Decent movie, worth the money. Maybe just wait till it comes out on streaming. Although it's definitely worth watching on the big screen because it's a big spectacle. I'd give Godzilla X Kong like a 6 out of 10. Not too bad. Pretty good movie.